Hello there and welcome to In My Opinion for the Callisto Protocol. We join Jacob and his co-worker Max delivering some cargo to Europa from Callisto, which houses the Black Iron Prison. During one of these runs, two members of the terrorist group known as the Outer Way boards the ship, and in the ensuing chaos the ship is damaged and makes a crash landing back to the prison, with only Jacob and one of the surviving terrorists named Danny. After being picked up by Captain Ferris, Jacob and Danny become inmates, get slapped with a cord device in the neck, and are thrown in a cell. Jacob wakes up to see the prison in utter chaos with these creatures tearing everyone apart. Now Jacob must find a way off this planet, far away from this nightmare. The story starts with you just wanting to escape, but more events happen that suck you in, wanting to learn what exactly is going on. Jacob is pretty likable with the few interactions he has with other people, and while he comes off rather cold at the start of the game, you see a little more of another side as you make some progress. I'm not going to mince words here. When you run into Danny for the first time, she is a flat out bitch. But you kind of get why as you go along and interact with her. I will say they missed a huge opportunity with Captain Ferris, as he's a fucking awesome baddie who chews up the scenery, but only gets about 5 minutes of screen time. I've heard some call the story bad because of tropes and being predictable in some parts, but I never found those things as negatives as long as I'm still interested, and this game kept my attention. Without spoiling much, the ending kind of ends on a cliffhanger that I'm guessing the upcoming DLC will continue. Though I will say, even if there was no DLC planned and we just had to hope for a sequel, the ending still has some satisfaction in it. I just can't go into details because spoilers. This is a third-person horror game where you'll be smashing your enemy skulls in with your baton, tossing them around with your grip glove, and blasting them with some guns. I will say the combat is surprisingly melee heavy, and has a pretty interesting system, and a simple way to describe it is Punch-Out! The horror game. It works like this: when you encounter an enemy, they will usually run at you to end your life, and you must hold the left or right direction to dodge the onslaught of attacks, then counter with your attacks. Now you don't need to time them just right to dodge, just hold the direction. But you still have to switch up the direction you're holding. So for example, you can't just keep holding left to dodge. And if for some reason you don't remember what directions you pushed, you can always hold down to block, causing a little bit of damage, but it's better than taking a full-on hit. As I mentioned, there is a glove and some guns, 5 to be exact, that you will eventually get, which you can use to help out in a fight. Such as when doing a melee combo, you are given a quick second to blast the enemy for further damage, and maybe to push them away by blowing them away with your riot gun. You can also put some holes in them before they reach you, damaging and maybe crippling them. For example, you could blow off the arm and have them come at you with just one arm, which makes an upfront encounter easier since they can't fully defend themselves. There's also an enemy that likes to spit at you from afar, and instead of blocking and dodging while slowly moving in, you could blast their head off and make them have no choice but to come to you. The glove I mentioned is you basically tapping into the force so you can pick up enemies and toss them around to death traps, like gears and spikes, for a quick kill. Or maybe just trip them up, letting you get some free hits in. Of course, the glove does have its limits, as it works for a limited time and you either have to wait for it to recharge or use an item to fill it up. I actually enjoyed this combat system a lot, as it felt fast, tense, and I just never got tired of bashing these creatures to a bloody pulp. When they come at you, there's just a rush of adrenaline, and the game does sprinkle some stuff as it goes along to keep you on your toes. Such as the enemies tend to switch up their attack patterns, so you can't always go dodge to and hit. Then at some point, new mutations added to enemies known as tentacles, which pop up after they are damaged a bit. And if you don't directly shoot at it with a gun or pummel them fast enough, then it will mutate them into a much stronger creature. I didn't find this annoying. In fact, I thought it added some tension, as now you have to adapt to this new threat. Another fact you have to think about is Jacob, as he's not some hardened warrior, he's just some guy. So the game doesn't let you pull off super long string combos. In fact, you can clearly see him get tired and out of breath, which is a nice detail. He also can't take too many direct hits, especially from the mutated versions of the enemies, which makes those encounters even more of a threat. The game does add some stealth sections, but thank God there's nothing annoying, as it's mainly optional, as there are some enemies that you can self-kill which can save you some resources. But if they see you, it's not an instant death, as you can fight back like normal. There is only 2 moments where being seen can cause you death, and it's all in the beginning and lasts about like 10 seconds. I do kind of wish we got another melee weapon, especially since this game is so focused on melee, to add even more spice to the combat. I mean, they could have easily gotten rid of one of the guns for it. I did hear some complaints about the combat from others, such as dodging not working correctly, and the melee system not being able to deal with more than one enemy. Now, full disclosure, I did not play this game at launch and instead played it a few months after it came out, and the developers have since released a few patches such as making healing and switching up your guns much faster, which is appreciated. So as of right now, my experience was the exact opposite. I never felt cheated in any of my combat situations, as my dodges worked perfectly. And when it came to multiple enemies, I was never blindsided, as the game does a pretty good job of locking you onto who's attacking you. I mean, I've had fights in very tight spots with an assload of enemies and still had a good time. Hell, even enemies help you out sometimes with resetting you, as they sometimes grab and shove you to the side. It also helps the game does give you the tools to handle these situations, such as planting some death traps around you to toss the enemies into, and you can mix up your gun and glove attacks to do some crowd control. There is an upgrade system within the game which by selling some items in the shop like energy converters for some cash, you can beef up your arsenal. So that baton of yours can now pack more of a wallop and even get a power attack that sends enemies flying if you need to catch your breath. Or if you run out of glove juice and want to smack them into a death trap. You can also make blocking more useful, as you can unlock a move in which after a block you can quickly counterattack and trip up the enemy. Of course you got other stuff like making your gun stronger and holding more ammo, and some of these add a nice visual touch up to the weapons. The guns can also get an up fire from the upgrades, which is a more powerful attack, it just sucks up more ammo in every shot. Even though I got the alt fire, I personally rarely used it as it just didn't feel necessary and my guns were powerful enough at that point. The last things you could do is upgrade your glove to make it last longer and push harder. And if you're dying for ammo, you can buy some, though I think the game gives you more than enough. You can also find stuff like money and ammo just lying about, in chests, or by stomping down on dead enemies. Callisto is a much more linear affair than some other horror games, and it's not a problem to me. I just want to let people know not to expect something like Resident Evil exploration. However, it does have some nooks and crannies that you can find if you look around. This could lead to more valuable stuff you can sell and even weapon schematics for a new gun. I do kind of wish there was a guiding line like in Dead Space, only because it would let me know where to go so I could do the opposite, as you can miss out on some of the goodies if you go too far in the right way. While you also find some dead people with audio logs sharing their last moments, and some even help unfold a bit of what's going on. Though don't worry if you miss any of these, as you won't be totally confused with the story, just think of them as nice little extras. You probably heard about the insane amount of crawling around events you do in this game, and yeah, even I have to admit it's a bit much, though it does cool down on it later on. Also, your inventory is pretty damn small at the start, so you have to decide what's more important to have on you. I kinda get what they were going for with making the player rethink about the inventory management, but it does get annoying, especially since even though you can drop and re-pick up stuff, you're not always allowed to come back to where you dropped said item, and sometimes where you drop the item has one of those crawling sections that just suck up more time. They really needed to add a way to store stuff, or at least add more shops so you can sell stuff to make room. Well, at least when you get your spacesuit, your inventory increases. Another issue I have is with the save system and how it's not the best. Like when it comes to auto-saving in spots before a confrontation, it's pretty good. But for example, there is a lift you have to take that will trigger a gauntlet fight. So beforehand, if you open a chest, sell some stuff and upgrade your weapons, then end up dying, you have to do all of that over again, as it only auto-saves when you enter the area that leads to the lift. There is a manual save, but it's utterly pointless, since again, all it does is start you at the last autosave. So if you hit an autosave, did some killing and collected some stuff, but did not hit another autosave but instead manually saved, when you start up the game again, it's like nothing happened. They at least should have had the game autosave each time you leave a shop. There ain't much when it comes to unlockables, which kinda sucks as I would have been fine with at least some skins. The only skins you can get is a retro prison one with the day 1 edition, and the free one you get by signing into Crafting, which is the one I've been rocking. They did add a New Game Plus option if you want to run through the game again with your weapons and upgrades and other difficulties. You just gotta reach the first shop to get back all your stuff. Good God, this game is gorgeous. The environments have some great details, so much so you can even feel the grime in some spots. I like the varied locations, as while you do start in a prison, it does change up as you progress. Like the sewers where the doo-doo water muck is pretty detailed and the outdoor snow sections are just freaking breathtaking. Then you have the character models which look jaw-dropping amazing. They are so damn detailed right down to the sweat on their faces. The creature designs ain't bad either, having some really grotesque designs. The blood and gore here is just fantastic. As you're wailing on these things, you see them just fall apart while just covering you in blood. The sound helps a lot as you hear the crunch and it gives your attacks that meaty feel. There's even some kill animations that are just like, damn. And this is for their and your deaths. There is a decent amount of enemy design types for a first outing, though you will be seeing the grunts most of the time. I can't forgive the lack of boss battles in this game, as it really could have lent itself to even more creative creatures. Instead, there is like a mid-boss that is reused 3 different times and only one real boss, which is at the end. The voice acting done by the cast is great, especially by Captain Ferris, who's voiced by Sam Witwer, aka Starkiller. And again, it's a crime he doesn't get more time. I do feel this game gives a pretty good horror atmosphere. Yeah, it kicks off with a bang with a prison riot, but after that things do calm down, and it gives a creepy vibe as you're exploring. There are some that say, well, with the game being so melee focused and the enemies on top of you, it just sucks out all the atmosphere, which I think is just ridiculous. I mean, look at something like Condemned Criminal Origins, a game that gets praised for its atmosphere, and last time I checked, the combat was melee focused as you beat up a bunch of hobos. I experienced no frame rate dips as this game ran in the smooth 60 FPS, and didn't run into any tech issues or bugs. If you heard about it being a mess, and that was the PC version at launch. But I've been hearing it's fixed up for the most part.
There's gotta be another way down.
Well, let's find it. Come on.
I had a great experience with the Callisto Protocol. The combat was fun, I was interested in what was going on, it looks amazing, and it has some good atmosphere. Yeah, it has some issues like the crawling and how saving works, but it didn't kill my enjoyment. It took me around 8 to 9 hours to beat, and that's with searching everything. For replay value, you can go through the game again on a harder difficulty with New Game Plus, but that's really it. Again, I wish we had some unlockables like skins or god weapon or something. I really do hope we get a sequel that improves on this solid foundation. I say if the combat looks interesting to you and you're into horror games, then you should at least give this a try. I hope you enjoy my thoughts on this game, and for gamers' sake, keep gaming.